You know by now that we're all about the journey. June's journey, that is. I feel this game was made for us specifically. It's the closest I've come to feeling like I've been dropped in the middle of a mystery novel set in the 1920s.
That's because you get to play as June, a globe-trotting flapper/amateur sleuth who lives to solve mysteries. You get to visit all sorts of fascinating places, from Paris to Cuba. You beat levels by identifying hidden objects in the scene. And we found that the more we play, the sharper our observational skills become.
The game is delightful, and a wonderful way to relax. I'll often pull my phone out and play it when I've got a free moment, like I'm on hold with an archive, or I'm waiting for a courthouse to open up in the morning. I'm currently on Chapter 16, meaning I'm searching for the son of June's housekeeper, who's on the run from New Orleans gamblers and the police. It's a wild time.
We know our audience is filled with folks who love a good mystery. Now is your chance to try your hand at being a sleuth yourself. Discover your inner detective when you download June's Journey for free today on iOS and Android.
Content warning, this episode contains discussion of the murder of two girls. Today is Wednesday, June 28th, 2023, and a whole host of documents in the Delphi case were just released on the orders of Judge Fran Gull, who is, of course, the judge presiding over the state's case against Richard Allen, who's been accused of murdering teenagers Abigail Williams and Liberty German back in 2017. This is in response to our filing requesting that non-sealed documents be made available to the public. And today we are going to go through and discuss some of the high-level updates we're getting from these newly released documents.
These documents were released just moments ago, so this is our first reaction to some of them. And again, as Anya mentioned, this is in response to a filing we made. The whole reason these documents are being released is because of that filing. And before we get into some of the details about what are in these documents, I'd like to take a moment to publicly thank Shay Hughes. Shay Hughes, you may know him as the Hoosier Public Defender. He's been on the show a couple of times. He also has a great Instagram account where he offers legal analysis. One of the big mysteries of this case to me is why more people don't follow him there, because his analysis and his insights are invaluable. So I strongly recommend that you go to Instagram and follow the Hoosier Public Defender. He was of invaluable assistance to us in preparing the motion that led to the release of these records.
My name is Anya Kane. I'm a journalist.
And I'm Kevin Greenlee. I'm an attorney.
We first connected while looking into the Burger Chef murders, an Indiana cold case. Together, we built a spreadsheet documenting hundreds of cases of restaurant-related homicides. That original spreadsheet gave way to our podcast, The Murder Sheet.
Now we maintain that same research-centric, investigative approach as we look into all sorts of homicides, including unsolved cases, historical crimes, and, of course, restaurant murders.
We don't just chat about the headlines. Our podcast is a platform for our journalism. The Murder Sheet focuses on investigative reporting, thoughtful analysis, thorough research, and in-depth interviews. We're The Murder Sheet.
And this is the Delphi Murders, the Delphi Documents.
Again, we're not going to go through everything from these documents in this episode. We're going to kind of try to take you through some of what we feel are the highest level updates. Then we're going to circle back with you and talk about anything else that we missed in the coming days. But in this episode, we just want to get you basically what we feel are the most important pieces of information we're gleaning from this massive trove of over 100 documents.
Yes. And there's a lot of very interesting information in these documents. It's almost difficult to know where to begin our discussion. But I know there's been a lot of talk and interest lately in the confessions. Richard Allen is alleged to have made 5 to 6 confessions to this crime while he was incarcerated. And so let's begin there. There is information about those confessions in these documents. I'm looking now at a motion for leave of court to subpoena third-party records. I scroll down to the bottom of page 6. On April 3rd, 2023, Richard M. Allen made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. In that phone call, Richard M. Allen admits several times that he killed Abby and Libby. Investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard M. Allen admits that he committed the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy Allen, ends the phone call abruptly.
There's been so much speculation about what form Richard Allen's confessions and incriminating statements took on. What this document is telling us is that it was in a phone call with his wife. So, not the warden letters, not a jailhouse snitch, a recorded phone call with his wife, where of course he would have no right to privacy whatsoever in prison or in jail.
That is correct.
That is pretty shocking. And I'll note one thing for the record is that Kathy Allen, Richard Allen's wife, was in court in June, at least as of June 15th, seemingly sitting in her usual place to support her husband. So that is one thing to note with this.
And another thing to note is the date. That confession to Kathy Allen is said to have taken place on April 3rd, 2023. Where have we heard that date before?
Is that the date that he started to lose his mind?
We go back to the emergency modification safekeeping motion, and we note in there that only 10 days later, April 3rd, 2023, attorneys for Mr. Allen observed a steep decline in Mr. Allen's demeanor, ability to communicate, ability to comprehend, and ability to assist in his defense. So it sounds like a lot of stuff was happening on April 3rd.
I mean, let's break that down. I think if you're looking at it with a sympathetic eye to the defense, he's starting to have some mental troubles there. If you're looking at it with some skepticism, that's very convenient that he starts to have a steep mental decline the moment that he makes an incriminating statement to his wife on a phone that she hangs up on.
Let's also note that the state appears to agree that there is some sort of massive change in his behavior after this phone call. I'm going back to what I was reading from before. And this, to be clear, is they're describing Richard Allen's behavior after the April 3rd phone call. And I know that this was written on April 20th. Investigators were made aware by the warden of Westville Correctional Facility that Richard M. Allen began to act strangely. Richard M. Allen was wetting down paperwork he had gotten from his attorneys and eating it. He was refusing to eat and refusing to sleep. He would go days on end refusing to sleep. He further broke the tablet that he used for text messages and phone calls. He went from making up to 2 phone calls a day as of April 3rd, 2023, to not making any phone calls at all. To date, Richard M. Allen still has not made a phone call since April 3rd, 2023. And again, that was written on April 20th.
So April had some pretty big developments in this case behind the scene, out of the public view for the most part, except the defense's filing about the safekeeping motion. This is huge. I mean, we don't know the content or the coherence of whatever incriminating statements he made, so we don't really know how to judge those. But obviously it's a pretty big deal in a case that this is recorded and to his wife as opposed to unrecorded or said to an investigator pressuring him to confess or said to a maybe not so credible jailhouse snitch.
Exactly.
This puts this into a somewhat different category, and I'm certainly not calling on a value here for, oh, this points to extreme guilt. I'm just noting that that is more of a problem for the defense than I told this jailhouse snitch something maybe sarcastically and they took it and ran with it. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah. And also a problem for the narrative that, he's suddenly acting very differently. A lot of self-inflicted, frankly, sounding bizarre behavior as far as eating paper and breaking tablets, not being in communication. You can look at that and see perhaps signs of mental illness, but without some sort of official diagnosis from somebody who's looking into possibilities like malingering. I think it's best if we all just sort of wait for the experts to weigh in on that. We're going to get into shortly the search warrant, which is basically the thing that Kevin and I have been most wanting to review. But before we do that, just since we're on the topic of confessions and the fallout from those confessions, I want to go into the state's response to the safekeeping order filed by the defense. This is the state's response to defense's emergency motion to modify safekeeping order, and this document was filed by prosecutor Nick McClelland on April 14th, 2023. So the following comes from a list of various points regarding that basically Nick McClelland wants the court to consider when gauging the safekeeping order and the modify safekeeping order filing. So basically he's saying, Judge, I want you to think about this. 16, that the state believes that the current status of defendant's mental health is due to the status of the case, not due to the location of his incarceration. And then we're going to skip ahead a bit to point 21. That the colorful, dramatic language used by the defense was an attempt to curry public favor for their client and try this matter in the public instead of in the courtroom. This goes into a lot of detail, basically, where Nick McClelland is pushing back against some of the narratives in the defense, basically indicating that Cass County Jail is not going to be any better, if not just outright worse than Westville for Richard Allen, and that basically the Carroll County Sheriff's Office is not colluding to do anything. They just are very strapped with manpower and not able to, basically move him and rush him around immediately. So this is basically a version of what we saw in the courtroom at the June 15th hearing, where Nick McClelland is sort of seizing control of the narrative, which had previously, I would say, been successfully run by the defense. So we're seeing this push and pull from the defense, from the prosecution. They're going back and forth. They're duking it out with some of these points. We had previously reported extensively on the defense's side of things. Now we're getting more of the prosecution side. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit for a reason. HelloFresh really wants you to have it all. Free time and fresh, tasty food. That's why they take care of all the meal planning and deliver the ingredients so everything you need to whip up a delicious meal arrives right to your door. We love the convenience of getting high-quality, pre-measured ingredients shipped right to our door so we can have the fun of cooking meals together in the kitchen without the pressure of worrying about whether or not we have all the items we need.
And let me stress that when we say high-quality ingredients, we really mean it. The last time I was in the grocery store, some of the produce I saw looked like it had been sitting out for weeks. And that is frustrating because this is the peak time for summer produce. Well, HelloFresh makes sure that their ingredients travel from the farm to your front door in less than 7 days. And when something is that fresh, it simply tastes better.
This is another great reason to try out HelloFresh. And remember, Murder Sheet listeners get a special discount.
Go to HelloFresh.com/MSheet50 and use code MSheet50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/MSheet50 and use code MSheet50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Find out why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit.
We are so delighted to work with our sponsor, Brilliant Earth. This is a company that offers some of the most brilliant and romantic engagement rings and wedding bands out there, all the while ensuring a commitment to ethical sourcing and sustainability.
If you're looking to get married or to become engaged, or even if you're just searching for a special piece of fine jewelry, you have to check out their website. They make browsing so easy.
They even let you design your own perfect engagement ring, or you can shop by style. I love the delicate willow rings, along with the 3-stone Nadia rings and the classic freesia rings. It's so hard to choose.
And you don't have to worry about the ethical implications of your purchase. Your special gift, your engagement ring, your wedding band should never be tarnished by the idea that the gems or materials came from an abusive system.
See, Brilliant Earth has a commitment to beyond conflict-free diamonds. That means one thing. They only accept diamonds from mining operations in countries that strictly follow international labor, trade, and environmental standards. Fewer than 1% of other diamond suppliers meet Brilliant Earth standards.
You can feel good about your purchase, knowing that you're supporting a brand that actually cares about its ethical impact and is committed to fostering better standards in the jewelry business.
Check out all of their beautiful pieces at brilliantearth.com. That's brilliantearth.com. Now I say let's get into this search warrant.
Let's get into the search warrant. So the search warrant comes with a probable cause affidavit. Much of the information in there is very similar to the probable cause affidavit that we saw in the arrest affidavit. There's some new stuff, though, when it's discussing Richard Allen and his wife's contacts with investigators.
Richard M. Allen was interviewed by investigators on October 13th, 2022 at an investigation center. He was interviewed by Detective Liggett and Carroll County Prosecutor Investigator Stephen Mullen. He agreed to come to the center and speak with investigators. He was advised his rights, and he was further advised that he was not under arrest and was free to leave at any time. Investigator Mullen explained to him how to leave the center if he so desired. He stated that he was in fact on the trails on February 13th, 2017. He further stated that he saw 3 girls on the trails east of the Freedom Bridge and also that he went on to the Monon High Bridge. He told investigators that he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood on that day. He stated he also wore some type of head covering. He further claimed that he saw no one else but the 3 girls that he observed east of the Freedom Bridge. Further, prior to the interview, he told investigators that he also had guns at this home. Richard M. Allen's wife, Kathy Allen, spoke to investigators as well. She confirmed that Richard did have guns and knives at the residence. She also stated that Richard still has a blue Carhartt jacket.
So, to summarize, what investigators learned from that interaction was that Richard Allen was at the bridge that day. He was, by his own admission, dressed in a way similar to Bridge Guy. He still apparently has at least some of those clothes at his residence. Bridge Guy apparently, in the crimes, used a gun and a knife. And he and his wife acknowledged that he has guns and a knife, or knives.
And also he acknowledged that he saw 3 girls that day, which of course is corroborated by the fact that 3 girls saw him.
Right. But for the purposes of obtaining a search warrant, the crucial pieces are he still has the clothes he wore that day, and he possesses guns and knives, and these were weapons used in the homicides. And so based on this is what police argued gave them probable cause to search his residence for those items.
I know a lot of people have speculated over time that if by he I mean Allen was interviewed by a Department of Natural Resources investigator in 2017, then, is that fresh enough? Like, can they use that against him later on when sort of the tip around him and his involvement is reviewed again in 2022? But this is him telling them in 2022 all the information they need to hear to get that warrant, right?
Right.
So this is, are we seeing any issues with the warrant?
Well, the defense does, and we'll get to that a little bit later.
Of course.
We don't want to give them a short.
No, we want to get into what their points are. I'm just curious with your overall look at this.
To me, that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
So now let's read the actual search warrant that was issued after this. You are hereby authorized and ordered in the name of the state of Indiana, with the necessary and proper assistance, to enter into or upon the property, including the residence, outbuildings, including a wooden shed on the property, and a 2016 black Ford Focus SE vehicle located at 1967 North Whiteman Drive, Delphi, Indiana, in Carroll County, said property being the residence of Richard M. Allen. The residence located on the property is described as a ranch-style house that is brick with a 2-car garage, as further depicted in the attached photograph. The property also contains a wooden shed. There is also a 2016 black Ford Focus SE located on the property. Law enforcement is ordered to diligently search for any and all information and or evidence of the crime of murder in violation of IC 354211, specifically to search for handguns, .40 caliber ammunition, knives, blue sweatshirts, jackets, black sweatshirts, jackets, clothing, electronic devices, and a cell phone with phone number 317, and any other electronic devices located in or on the locations described above. Law enforcement is authorized to search these areas to determine whether or not there has been a violation committed as described in the affidavit at the residence, in the yard, the vehicle, and any appurtenances. So now we know exactly what they were looking for. And for what it's worth, there's been lots of rumors out there that they found like cat hair or something. There's nothing in there about looking for cat hair.
Yeah.
But the next question is, we know what they were looking for. What did they find?
Well, we actually get to know exactly what they found because attached to this is a property record and receipt, basically a search warrant return that Indiana State Police filed.
So this is basically an inventory of everything they seized from the Allen residence.
So what exactly were they looking for? We're not going to read the entire return because it goes on for many pages and involves a lot of very repetitive language. But let's break down the categories. They're looking for, first of all, they got his black Sig Sauer P226 and cartridges and the case and the various accessories that would go with such a handgun. So that's no surprise. That gun, according to the prosecution, ties him to the scene, so they are going to want to get everything around that all cleared up. And so
they also seized one Lexar compact flash 1 gig memory card.
Right, memory card, as well as silver Motorola flip phones. So there's a desire to get his technology, essentially, and, outlet chargers, car chargers. So they're trying to get one paper-wrapped wooden weave box containing 2 AudioVox devices. So there's the technology, there's the guns.
And then there's clothing items. A number of boots.
Dirty boots.
Sweatshirts, dark sweatshirts.
A Fox hooded sweatshirt, a North End coat, a Carhartt coat, a blue Carhartt coat to be specific, Timberland boots, Arizona jeans, various types of jeans from Levi Strauss in Arizona, sweatshirts.
Several knives.
Many, many knives. Many different types of knives. Folding knives, Ozark Trail knives. They're getting a lot of different types of knives, knife sheaths, multi-tools, things like that, weapons.
I'm seeing more phones. One thing that's interesting, I'm also seeing they took a Aquafina water bottle. Perhaps that was for DNA purposes.
Yeah. Let's talk about some headgear. Skull caps, stocking caps, gloves, fitted caps with small bills, black WRI stocking cap, just a lot of different types of hats, caps, headgear. In the video of Bridge Guy approaching Abby and Libby, it's hard to see, but a lot of people have noted over time that it appears that he may be wearing some sort of headgear.
Yes. One thing that's worth pointing out is all of these knives, all these clothing.
Katana, a miniature katana. So that's some weird weapons too.
Yeah. all the stuff that's seized, we don't know what, if any, tests have been done on these items, nor do we know the conclusions of these tests. Other than, of course, we know that one of the guns is said to have been ballistically linked to an unspent shell found at the crime scene. We don't know if they've done any testing on the clothing items at this time. We don't know if they've done any testing on the knives at this time.
We do know from the document that, there's a box next to each thing that says you can order a lab exam, and that has been checked for the sealed cardboard box containing one black Sig Sauer P226 40 caliber handgun, as well as the bag containing one 40 caliber S&W cartridge found in a wooden keepsake box on the dresser between both closets in the master bedroom. Those had lab exams ordered for them. Other items that had lab exams ordered for them include, actually the only other one was sealed envelope containing a cutting of a carpeted area underneath the spare tire of the Ford Focus.
So to speculate, would you assume or would you guess that perhaps they saw something on that carpet that made them wonder if there was a presence of blood there?
Perhaps, or if that's maybe a hard place to clean, so that would be a good place to test something out. Those are the things that had lab exams initially ordered. We have no intelligence about what that would, entail then. So again, lots of, other swabs from the passenger side and the driver lap belt. So there's different swabs from the Ford Focus that Alan drove. There are a number of flip phones. There are a number of black Samsung Galaxy, black Pixel cell phone, different motorcycle accessories and accoutrements. Good amount of technology, like Nokia. We're talking about a lot of phones. Laptop charger, phone accessories. Those are kind of the big categories, I would say.
There's a lot there for investigators to work with.
Yeah, there's a lot there to, I think, basically sift through and see if they're getting information that they can further bolster their case against Alan.
Now, as long as we're on this thread about the search warrant, I think the next notable thing to highlight about that is that on May 19th, 2023, Andy Baldwin, one of the counsels representing the defendant Richard Allen, filed a motion to suppress the fruits of the search of this residence.
Okay, so throw out the search warrant.
Let's look at what he had to say. The affidavit submitted in support of the search warrant failed to establish that the items to be seized were in the residence or could be expected to be in the residence at the time of the search. The affidavit submitted in support of the search warrant failed to provide particular information that particular items related to the particular crime would be found in the accused home, but rather provided generic information concerning generic items that could be found in the accused home or any other home potentially in Indiana. The affidavit submitted in support of the search warrant failed to connect the generic items for which it was seeking to the actual items that were possibly used in the crime for which he is now charged. The search warrant was unreasonable under both the Indiana and federal constitution. So basically, he is arguing that you can't search a person's home just because you know he owns guns and a knife and blue sweatshirt.
Okay. Does he have a point?
The prosecution would certainly say that it's more than that.
Yeah, I think it's a bit more than that. That's just my gut. But I see what they're trying to do, so I'm not more,
The prosecution, we're looking at what the prosecution says in a second. But they would certainly say that he also admitted he was there at the scene of the crime, and these are things that are associated with the culprit.
Also, that who's on video.
Yes.
That wearing clothing, I would say that's not inconsistent to what Alan said he would be wearing that day.
And it's not mentioned in this document, but we know that the defense has indicated that they believe that in the preparation of the documents leading to the probable cause, law enforcement either lied or admitted facts. And we still don't know what exactly they're alleging.
And we're getting that because they indicated that at the previous hearing. That they explicitly mentioned Franks v. Delaware issues, which of course is what Kevin is referring to there. That is the case that gets into such matters. So this is likely not the end-all, be-all of trying to get some of this search thrown out. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. They're going to argue that there were either lies or admissions on the part of law enforcement. We don't know what they're alleging, and we don't know if there's any evidence for that, but they're going to try to make that case.
It's very important for the defense to try to get this search thrown out, I imagine.
Yes.
It's kind of, if the search goes out, then the case may go out. But just looking at this briefly, I don't know about the Franks v. Delaware option. That's almost a side issue. But in this, when you have a person saying, I was there on the trail, on the bridge, other people saw me, I saw them, and I'm wearing clothing identical to the perpetrator, or at least maybe not inconsistent, because it's such a blurry video that it's very hard to, I don't know if you can really say, like, lock onto a brand or anything like that. I think that seems far-fetched, but that there seems to be at least something there, more so than just, he has this type of clothing. But what does the prosecution have to say?
The prosecution filed their response to the defense motion on June 13th, 2023.
And that, of course, was right 2 days before the public hearing that you and I attended, along with other members of the news media and the public. So again, guys, good reminder that a lot of stuff is always going on in this case that we're not necessarily immediately seeing.
And basically, in their response, McClelland repeats the facts we've been discussing, namely that Richard Allen said he was there, and he and his wife admitted that he still had guns and knives, along with the blue jacket. This crime was perpetrated by someone in a blue jacket who had access to guns and knives. Mm-hmm. So basically, he's saying that's good enough.
Yeah.
An interesting little detail here is he indicates that the search happened between 5 p.m. and 7:09 p.m. on October 13th, 2022, and that Allen and his wife were not allowed to be in the residence while the search warrant was being executed, but they were allowed back in immediately afterwards.
Right. Wow.
There's a lot more to discuss here. We have the motions regarding ballistics evidence.
Okay.
Basically, the defense believes that ballistics evidence is unreliable and therefore should not be discussed in front of the jury, and the jury should not be considering it.
So we talked in the past about how the defense attorneys, these are, like any skilled defense attorney, you're going to be trying to attack crucial evidence from a number of angles. It's not just about trying one thing and then giving up. So, if you can get the gun tossed because the search warrant's bad, great. But if the search warrant's not bad, maybe ballistics evidence in general is bad. So you're trying to find those different angles where you can kind of get things suppressed, right?
Right.
So they're being strategic. They're looking at this. There's been pushback to ballistics evidence in recent years with defense attorneys, people who are on the prosecution side, people who work in forensics. Do not think that is fair, but these are issues that are playing out in courts around the country.
And we'll discuss more of that later in another episode. Before we wrap up this episode, I'd like to take a moment. We can solve one of the very minor mysteries in this case. You might remember that back in April, there was an entry on the docket indicating that the court had received correspondence from a Westville inmate. Some people were saying, this must be another letter from Richard Allen. And we at the time said we don't believe the way it's filed doesn't indicate that it probably was from Richard Allen.
Because it would say it was from Richard Allen.
We now have that letter. It was not from Richard Allen, but it was from someone whose name we've heard recently.
Oh, God, yeah. Bastone.
Yes.
Robert Bastone.
Robert Bastone.
A convicted child molester.
I will read the letter. We'll find out what this mysterious letter had to say. I am an inmate at Westville Correctional Facility in the same unit that Richard Allen is being housed in awaiting trial. Richard Allen is being abused and mistreated along with other inmates in Westville Control Unit Restrictive Housing. There are corrupt officers and ranking officers calling Richard Allen a kid killer, teasing him that he has a visit from his family. Phone is ringing on his tablet. Inmates in cells threatening to kill Richard Allen and telling him to kill himself. And these inmates have made these comments in front of the warden, John Gallipo, ranking officers, and officers. The staff has recorded on camera these inmates making these threats and suggestions to kill himself and has done nothing to stop it. I have proof and evidence of assaults by ranking officers and officers on inmates, abuse and mistreatment in grievance and the Governor's Office of Ombudsman Bureau that have been mishandled and covered up because the Indiana Department of Correction is allowed to police itself with their Office of Investigation and Intelligence. I recently sent letters to the U.S. Department of Justice from Indiana State Representative Dr. Vernon G. Smith and from the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee concerning the DOJ and FBI mishandling complaints on the Indiana Department of Correction and their facilities. On March 21st, 2023, while in the same unit as Richard Allen, I attempted suicide and spent 3 days in the hospital due to staff and officer abuse and mistreatment. On April 9th, 2022, I attempted suicide and spent 4 days in hospital intensive care unit. The Indiana Department of Corrections or their mental health provider has provided me no mental health help or treatment. I correspond with the New York Times investigative reporter and her team at the University School of Law and have made them aware of the assaults, abuse, and mistreatment going on here at Westville Correctional Facility and other Indiana Department of Correction facilities. Please forward this letter to the judge in Richard Allen's case and to his attorneys because I have wrote to the organizations mentioned to expose the assaults, abuse, and mistreatment. Respectfully submitted and sincerely, Robert P. Bastone. P.S. Richard Allen's attorneys just exposed the abuse and mistreatment in the news media and filed an emergency petition in the court.
All right. That's the Bastone mystery solved, and also the strange inmate letter mystery solved. Let's remember that this guy molested a 6-year-old girl and, has spent the last period of his incarceration on a one-man grievance campaign. I'm sorry, that's just what it is. Now, that doesn't mean he's not correct about what's going on with Richard Allen. So he mentions having evidence. It'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. But I have to make it clear that I personally am quite skeptical about this, because I don't believe that this man has a lot of credibility based on what we read about him perpetuating against a 6-year-old who he then basically victim blamed, because she didn't act like a victim, whatever the hell that means. And then second of all, this is the same guy who went out and said that, he should be released to help on the front lines of the COVID epidemic, because that's definitely who you want helping, child molester.
Well, we have a lot more to say about all of this, and we'll dive into some of the other documents, but we wanted to give you a quick heads up on some of the bigger items that were mentioned in them.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions about other stuff we've talked about already. We're going to just be kind of taking our time and going into this in granular detail and hopefully getting some questions answered and maybe having some new questions arise. And I just want to say that we're so pleased that this filing has led to the release of this documentation. We feel that sunlight is an excellent thing for the criminal justice system. We're very gratified that Judge Gull and the powers that be here, including the defense team, Andy Baldwin, Brad Rosie, and the prosecutor, Nick McClelland, there didn't seem to be any objections to this. There just seemed to be an acknowledgement that whatever was happening that was sort of not allowing these things to see the public space was just causing a lot of speculation, and that it's not harmful to a case to have information about it released to the public, as long as that's done so in a prudent way, which of course was done so here because it required a lot of review and a lot of sort of discussion before it happened. But hopefully this marks a new chapter where we can all be even more informed about this very important case and can all follow along as the system attempts to, move forward, and we can watch Richard Allen's case, see how that's going, and also, see the process of possibly attempting to get justice for Libby and Abby.
Thanks so much for listening to The Murder Sheet. If you have a tip concerning one of the cases we cover, please email us at murdersheet@gmail.com. If you have actionable information about an unsolved crime, please report it to the appropriate authorities.
If you're interested in joining our Patreon, that's available at www.patreon.com/murdersheet. If you want to tip us a bit of money for records requests, you can do so at www.buymeacoffee.com/murdersheet. We very much appreciate any support.
Special thanks to Kevin Tyler Greenlee, who composed the music for the Murder Sheet, and who you can find on the web at kevintg.com.
If you're looking to talk with other listeners about a case we've covered, you can join the Murder Sheet discussion group on Facebook. We mostly focus our time on research and reporting, so we're not on social media much. We do try to check our email account, but we ask for patience as we often receive a lot of messages. Thanks again for listening.
I want to take a moment here to say thanks again to Brilliant Earth. I think in this day and age, it's always difficult to find a company that delivers fine quality products while still maintaining high ethical standards. And that's especially hard to find in the jewelry business. But Brilliant Earth is that company.
Absolutely. They've actually trademarked their Beyond Conflict-Free guarantee. That essentially means that they're going above and beyond to ensure that their diamonds are ethically sourced. They offer a wide range of different natural diamonds as well as lab diamonds. But you can rest assured that these are going to be coming from operators and countries that are maintaining global standards when it comes to labor and environmental practices. So you won't have your special ring, your engagement ring, your wedding band be tainted with this idea that it came from an unethical and problematic situation. It's a real load off of your mind as a consumer, because even try as we might, it's often hard to kind of maintain those best practices in your own life when you're shopping for products. So this is a brand that does the work for you in that.
And you can visit their website. They have a terrific selection of quality merchandise.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that it's not just diamond engagement rings and wedding bands. They have jewelry for men. They have religious jewelry. They have tennis bracelets that are super cute. I love their willow rings because they're kind of like have a naturey vibe. And I mean, I don't consider myself like a hippie or anything, but I vibe with those. I think they were really pretty. I also like their Frisia diamond rings. Those are more of like the classic engagement ring you think of when you think of engagement rings. And so I just think there's something for everybody. I think you can go in there and look at some of their beautiful offerings, but you could actually go and design your own ring to ensure that you're getting the perfect thing that just matches your personality, makes a statement, and, tells people a bit about, what you like, what your tastes are, and how you are as a person. So if you're looking for an engagement ring, if you're looking for a wedding band, if you're just looking for a gift for someone that you care about who loves jewelry, visit brilliantearth.com. They've got a great selection. Check it out. And you really can't go wrong with that.
And again, that's brilliantearth.com.